Hey guys, one of the things I've been playing around with a good bit lately is Copilot Studio and seeing how I can use it, doing a lot of learning there. There's a lot to learn and how these things work and how to interact with them. It kind of completely changes the way you think about how software can work. But today, what I wanted to kind of look at was the Copilot Studio agent that's in Finance and Operations, and how we can add knowledge and actually actions in that Copilot Studio in that Copilot that's in Finance and Operations. So what we'll see is that that's just another agent that we can edit with Copilot Studio using the same tools that we would with any other agent, where we can add knowledge as websites, Dataverse, SharePoint sites, etc. You could add actions, using various connectors. So the example I'm going to use today is an example that I've actually been using quite a bit, which is creating a product backlog item in Azure DevOps. So a lot of my job, what I do is I go through and work with clients, and I create what's called a product backlog item. It's a backlog. If you're familiar with Scrum methodology, it's the product backlog item. Agile refers to it as a user story, but it's just basically a requirement for a piece of software. I need to create a sales order. I need to create a warehouse. I need to create a purchase order. Those type things are all product backlog items that we can create in Azure DevOps. So one of the things that I do a lot is I write a lot of descriptions for those. So once you create your backlog item, you need a title for it. You need a description. You need what's called acceptance criteria, and that's just testable criteria that you can have for your process. So I spent a lot of time doing that. So what I've found Copilot is helpful for me was I can have it create those descriptions and titles and acceptance criteria, at least at a base, and then I go through and edit it a good bit. But it's a really good starting point I've found to use, and I'm still refining it and trying to make it better and better. But it's something that I've been using actually at work and doing various things with it. So it's actually something I'm using in real life. So I wanted to kind of show you this example. So let's take a look at how that works in Dynamics 365. We'll go ahead and build out this Copilot add the action, we'll add the knowledge, and we'll come back in just a minute after I'll show you all of that. So I've signed into Microsoft Copilot Studio, and to get to the agents, the F&O agent, I'm going to click on agents, and the agent that's there gets installed with the solution is Copilot for Finance and Operation Apps. I'll go ahead and click in there. When we open this agent up, you'll see the same pieces that are in any other agent. I've got a name, description. If I scroll down here a little bit, I've got knowledge that I can add, actions and triggers. So it should look exactly like any other Copilot agent, and we can add knowledge to it and create actions for it. Same way we would use any other agent that we're going to do. The only difference is that this one is going to show up inside of Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. So the first one we're going to add is a knowledge source for the Microsoft Learn site. Now, more than likely, I probably don't need to do this. I've gotten better results though when I do the Learn. The reason why I say you probably don't have to do this, there's probably a way around this, is it already has some knowledge in there for different Dynamics processes. But I found that it works a little bit better if I go ahead and add this knowledge source. So I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the name in there. I'm going to throw a description in there, I'm going to put a link, a description, and put a name in here. I'm going to just copy and paste this from a notepad I've got. Put that in there, and then we'll add that knowledge source. So we've got the Microsoft Dynamics 365 process information knowledge source. So again, that's just the Microsoft Learn site. And the next piece of our product backlog item I want to give it knowledge on is acceptance criteria. And acceptance criteria is just the different testable criteria that if you're familiar with using a Scrum methodology, it's just the testable criteria for the product backlog item. So I want to give it some knowledge on what that should be. So I'm going to add another knowledge source for this. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a link for the knowledge source for the acceptance criteria. We're going to add a link there. And then I'm going to put a name for it. Copy that in the name column. And the name is just really to make it easier to find. And then I'm going to give it kind of a description and put that in there as well. So this is just going to say how to create good acceptance criteria. So we'll go ahead and add that in there. So now we have two knowledge sources in there. The last little piece I want to give it is in my product backlog item in the acceptance criteria. I want it to be a bulleted list. And I'm going to give it knowledge on how to create a bulleted list in HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and hit added knowledge. And the link is going to be from W3 Schools. So paste that in, add that. We'll give it a name. I'll just call it HTML reference. I'll paste that in here, HTML reference. And then I'm just going to give it a quick description. So this is just the description just says this is about how to create HTML pages and tags. So I'll add that onto this knowledge as well. I've got my 3 knowledge sources in there. I'm going to turn off the general knowledge. I don't want it using outside knowledge. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off so it doesn't use any inherited knowledge. So I'll turn that off. So the only knowledge that it has is my 3 references, my three pieces of knowledge that I've added. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an action. So the action I want to do is I want to create a product backlog item in DevOps. So I'm going to go ahead and add action. I'm going to search for DevOps. I should pull up a list, and what I want to do is I want to create an item. Let me just see if you find it. There's update an item. I probably missed it here. Create a work item. Sorry, it's right at the top. So go ahead and click on that. Great, and we're going to go ahead and next. I want to change the name of this. I'm going to call it create a product backlog item. In the description of this agent, this action creates a product backlog item in Azure DevOps, something like that. We'll go ahead and leave it user authentication. I don't want to use my own authentication or my Copilot authentication. I'll do inputs and outputs in just a second. We're going to add action. So there's my action. Now I can get to actions as well if I click up here, or I can get to knowledge if I click up top as well. So I'm going to click on the action there and go ahead and click at the create a work item action. And I'm going to change the name to the same thing as the display name just to make it easy. And then I'm going to go to my input side. So we'll go to the input. And for my organization name, I want to set that as a value. I don't want it trying to fill that in or ask me. So I'm just going to fill in my value there. The project name, I'm going to set that as a value as well. It's going to confirm and say, hey, you're going to set that as a value. There's my DevOps project I'll specify. The work item type that I want to create is a specific one. So I'm going to set that as a value. And I want a product backlog item here. So I should get a list. There we go, product backlog item. And then title, we will want to put a title in. So the description on this, we're going to kind of put instructions here on the description. So this is the let's see what we can say here. The title is the process that the user is requesting the product backlog item creation for. Something like that. So I'm just giving a little instruction that says, what this title is. Now I can also add additional inputs. So 2 other additional inputs that I want to do is I want to add a description on my product backlog item. So I'll go ahead and click on description, come back down here, and I want that to be filled in dynamically. So what I'm going to do is I've pre-typed in, I've got kind of a specific description I want to put in there, or specific instructions I want to get. So I kind of put that off to the side so I can summarize that for us. And really basically what it says is it's summarizing the process description to be understood by a high school student, explain what the record is used for example, if the process is to create a warehouse, explain how a warehouse is used in Dynamics 365, or if the process edits a sales order, explain what a sales order is used for in Dynamics 365. This section should be less than 500 words. Is kind of what I put in that little description there. So I'm trying to give it some instructions on what to put there. Now, one additional piece that I want to put is my acceptance criteria box. So I'm going to go ahead and look for that, and there's my acceptance criteria. And let's go ahead and we'll give that a description as well, and we'll talk about this one in just a second. We'll copy that and paste. So on this one, I'm saying use the Microsoft Dynamics 365 process information. That's my knowledge source. I've put that into quotes. And acceptance criteria, I've put that in quotes. That's where it's going to get its knowledge for what acceptance criteria is and the processes, what processes in Dynamics it can see to create good acceptance criteria for the process. Use the HTML reference. So again, that's our other knowledge source to the W3 schools to create a bulleted list using the UL tag of no more than 10 bullets in HTML format. So when this API is called, I can actually format text in Azure DevOps by using HTML. So when it responds, if it responds in HTML, I'll see that formatting in my Azure DevOps. Okay, so that should be all we need to do. Let's go ahead and save it. And once we get saved here, we'll test it. As far as DevOps, if I go into DevOps, here's my project and my backlog in DevOps. I don't have anything in there now. I just did a refresh there. There's nothing there in the backlog right now. So what I can do now is, let's see, create a product backlog item for the process. Let's do create a sales order. And we'll see how it responds. See if we get everything in. Now, it may ask me to do a connection here the first time I try it. So let's see if it's going to ask me to do a connection or if it remembers a previous connection I had. Okay. So there it goes. So it created a backlog item here. So I have a backlog item. Now, interesting enough, DevOps, the API responds with a kind of I guess it's just the API callback. I would like for it to respond with an actual link to my DevOps item. I don't have that in there yet. I haven't quite figured that out, to be honest with you. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just haven't figured it out yet. But if we go back to DevOps real quick and we'll refresh again, we can hop in here and we should see a backlog item. So here's our create a sales order backlog item. It identified that as the process in the title. It gave me a process description. And then it created some basic acceptance criteria for me. So now, obviously, if anybody that's created backlog items and things before, this obviously needs to be edited, changed, etc. But it's a good starting point. It is pretty good generally. I've found as I've been using this. So let's go ahead and close that. And we've got that was ID 15. So what we can do now is let's go ahead and publish it. So we'll publish this back that we made changes. Now we've done our test. We'll go ahead and do that and publish. Okay, that took a few minutes to publish or a few seconds to publish, so I pause it there. We'll come back. So now let's go over to F&O. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the screen just to make sure that I've got all the latest Copilot settings. We'll go ahead and refresh it here. And we'll go up to Copilot. So we should be able to trigger our action right from here when this loads up. So the idea is that, we might be working in here and you might need to create a PBI for something. I need to create a PBI for my client. So let's do another one. Let's see, create a product backlog item for the process. Maintain warehouses. And by the way, any of those knowledge sources that you have, I can actually ask it questions on HTML if I wanted to. So you can add any information, all that information we have, we can type in, ask questions on any of the knowledge sources. We can add multiple actions, etc. So it did say it created it. Let's go back into our demo or DevOps, and we'll hit refresh here. We should see now we have two PBIs. So here's our second one, our maintain warehouses. And there's our product backlog item and our description and our acceptance criteria there. So I don't know about you guys. I may be just jaded, but I think that's pretty cool. I really do. That's one of the cooler things. There's lots of really interesting things that you can do with these around summarizing text and any kind of documents you're creating. I found that Copilot really is useful in those pieces of information or creating those kind of documents or things. So I think it's really cool that I can create these product backlog items like this. Again, I do have to go in and edit them and make them my own and make them customer specific, but it's a really good starting point that I can just go in and edit and make changes to them. So it's one of those things. I think it's cool. You guys may not. It's not something that you would use every day, but if you're a consultant like I am and you're creating lots of these different records or processes, it's really a cool thing. Now you can apply this same thing to a wide variety of things. You can add an email action in DevOps. You can add, there's all sorts of API calls. There's a lot of different connectors that you can use to trigger actions. So get in there and play with it. You can really do a lot of different things with the Copilot and the actions, as well as the knowledge sources. I didn't really show you the knowledge sources there in the demo, but all of those knowledge sources, I could still ask it questions. I had that W3 school one in there. I could ask it HTML questions if I wanted. You can have a whole list of knowledge sources that you could put in there for different things. If you got like compliance documents for a company or process documents that's in your company, you can add those as knowledge sources and then have that information accessible right to you from the Copilot screen. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found use in this. Until next time, see you later. Bye.